So as we just said, Microsoft wants to remove any and all barriers for upgrades because that means revenue. People are spending money on the new version of Windows or Server. And they will always promote and they will, they will recommend in-place methods for upgrades for OS deployment. And they'll have a step-by-step guide, and they'll expect you to know the criteria, even for their certifications. What they're really saying is, we want you to take what's in this Windows directory, all the old stuff, like from the identity CRL, right? These are certificates. This is an important security component of the Windows OS directory. And it has to do with identity management, right? So that's huge. That has to do with logins and security and authentication and authorization, right? It's from 2019, December of 2019. And what they really want you to do is to load the new version of Windows on top of that. And what inevitably happens, I want to show you this. In the new version of Windows some years ago, they used to have something called documents. They didn't have a users folder, okay? So not too long ago, Windows did not have a users folder where the user login profiles were stored. Instead, they had a documents folder, right? And so if you took the new version of Windows and you upgraded in place, it created a new users folder, started storing user profile information in here, but you still had the old documents folder out here, right? Which was messy. So what we're really saying is, they're telling you it's okay to paint over the old paint without scraping the old paint. Have any of you ever painted before?
Yeah, I see.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll tell you that finding what you need to keep to wipe the slate clean is so easy, it's disgusting. And it's also a little precarious because a lot of people don't realize within the users folder, there are hidden folders, right? There are some that you won't see because of permissions issues. I'm going to go inside this one and show you if let's see, if I change the view not to show hidden items, you notice some folders disappeared, right? So the listing of folders changed when I hid. So we have hidden folders inside the owner profile, basically. And these are shortcuts. These aren't really folders per se. So a lot of times when you go, well, actually, these are shortcuts. So as you look at your Windows File Explorer and you're looking inside, and you click on documents and pictures and videos and music, what you're really doing is, you'll notice when you click up here, you don't see a C drive with a directory path listed, right? This is a challenge. If you look at a user profile and go into properties, actually what I'm going to do is drill into here. And let's take the desktop folder. If I look at properties, does everybody see the location tab?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what I'm trying to show you. If I go to the C drive to my temp folder and I go to properties, do you see a location tab here?
Nope.
Nope, you don't. if we go into the users and we grab the videos, if I say, okay, I'm gonna drag this to a USB thumb drive, and I just drag it. I have it. Let's pretend that I click on this PC, and so I have my folders here, and I go ahead and I drag. I insert a thumb drive and I drag because I want to keep all my videos and my pictures and my music. All right, everybody with me? And my documents,
Yeah.
desktop, and I'm doing all that, right? I'm not actually dragging the whole directory. This is a container. That's actually a link. It's a shortcut. What I need to do is right click and go into properties. And here you see the location tab. And it just so happens that it shows C drive users owner videos. So now I have a target. But does everybody see move and find target
Yeah.
and restore default? And then here's the evil, nasty question. Has everybody heard of something called OneDrive?
Yeah, but I don't use it.
Yeah. See, when you install the latest version of Windows 10, Microsoft wants to park OneDrive in here. And so what happens is that they want you to put all of your stuff now where? Where do they want you to put all your videos and documents and all that other stuff?
On the OneDrive.
In OneDrive. See right here? So this is actually, does this have a location tab? No. This is built into the OS at the OS level now. And if you use OneDrive for your documents, if you sync and you set up OneDrive to store your Office 365 documents, it creates all of these instances for video, pictures, music, documents, downloads, favorites. And those are your shortcuts for your browser, right? All that stuff, contacts, that goes in the cloud. And the thing that I want to cue you to is that depending on certain applications, like I loaded Anaconda on here, so you see a lot of dotted folders for Anaconda. But then there's this one folder that sticks out kind of like a sore thumb. It's hard to see. Let me change the view. Let's make these icons large. So I'm showing hidden directories. Can everybody see how app data is a little fainter?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're aware that you have to dig deeper and you have to right click and go to the location tab to make sure you're pulling the original source of data that people want to keep, right? You're gonna discover if something is actually keyed to OneDrive and it's not stored on the local C drive. In this case, you saw that my videos directory is actually located in my videos directory in the C drive under users and the owner profile. But then I have this app data folder, and this is the other thing, this is the other place where data is stored. So as long as you understand to reference location tabs to find the real source of user data you want to keep, you also want to look in app data, and you want to look in local. Because when you look in local, you'll find things like, oh, a Microsoft folder. And inside there, an Office and an Outlook folder. In particular, in Outlook, there are offline copies of the mailbox. What am I saying? Here is Outlook. This is not Outlook in Office 365 on the web in the cloud. This is Outlook installed as an application on my local desktop. Does anyone else have Outlook?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. So here's the cool part. If you go into here, and then you go into account settings, and then you do this. If you change the settings here, you have an option to use cached exchange mode to download email to an Outlook data file. What that means is that everything that's in your email, see, a lot of people in business, they're like, hey, I don't care if I lose my pictures, but don't lose my email, right? Don't lose my email. If they have their Outlook set so that when they're not connected with the internet, they can read their email, they can get into their contacts, they can look at their calendar, they can do all that stuff, right? Even when they're not connected to the internet. That stuff is stored in a file. It's called cached mode. And that file is inside this directory right here. Everybody see offline address book?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at this one. Oh my gosh. 12 gigs large. I have all of my email from UVI stored locally. Now, it could be stored on the server in the cloud in Office 365, but the reason you want to preserve all the data, let's say somebody makes a decision next year, they don't want to renew their Office 365 subscription. They're tired of paying $60 a year just to have Office 365. They don't really use Office that much anymore for what they do. They don't use OneDrive and the terabyte of drive space. That's right, there's 1 terabyte of drive space in OneDrive. What do I use OneDrive for? I don't connect OneDrive, but I use it. That's because if I get ransomware and everything is like encrypted and I have to pay some guy huge amount of money to get my data back, I have copies every now and then, like once a week. I sync up the changes to my OneDrive and I disconnect it. My OneDrive is not, it's not an open container on my PC, because if I'm attacked by ransomware and it's encrypted, it's going to encrypt everything in my C drive, anything on USB drives that are connected. If I have an external hard drive for backups, it's going to encrypt that. If my OneDrive is open, where my documents folder is sitting, it's going to encrypt what's on OneDrive in the cloud, which I thought was my backup. It's not. It's only a location you chose to store your data, which is not on your local machine. It can still be damaged. It can still be corrupted. It can still be ruined. And it has been. It's horrific. People don't know until it happens. And then they're like, oh, we have to pay the ransom. Haven't you heard those stories about, oh yeah, they had to pay the ransom to get their stuff back? You're like, well, don't they have backups? Yeah, they were using OneDrive. They thought it was a backup. They thought it was a backup in the cloud. It's not. It's like a giant external hard drive. The point I'm trying to make is, if you decide you're not going to use Office 365, you might think you don't need what's in OneDrive, and then it's gone. You might not think you need the old email, but then, well, your account with Microsoft just died. You don't have it anymore. Put another way, they took this 12 gigabytes of history with students and other faculty, the UVI president, all the stuff I've been doing since I started employment in August of 2016, it's gone. If my Office 365 account ends, it's not renewed, if there's some kind of glitch, everything that's stored in there is deleted. And the point I'm trying to make is, you want to understand this. Microsoft's going to want you to go ahead and upgrade in place. Do they care that when you paint over the old paint, right? So you go ahead and you load the new version, and it pushes all these files and other things on top of the old stuff. It's like new paint on top of old paint that isn't scraped. And then your system gets flaky and it blows up. You know what they're going to tell you to do at that point? Would you care to guess what they're going to tell you to do at that point? When things don't work so well, because why? You put the new operating system, you bolted it right on top of the old, crappy, buggy, flaky, unstable operating system. They're going to tell you to clean slate it.
Like a factory reset or something?
Now, when you factory reset, that is a built-in feature, and that's something that they started to do a little while ago. I want to show this to you, and I find this to be a really cool thing to show and share with people. If you go into my PC on File Explorer and you right-click where it says this PC, and you select Manage, it opens up the Computer Management, Microsoft Management Console, or MMC. So you can literally click the Start menu and type in MMC, and then just hit Enter, and it'll open up a new one. It'll open up a new MMC with nothing in there, but you can change the options for that new MMC and add like, well, first of all, you connect it to a computer. Then you can, as options, you can add modules, and you get something like this, basically, where you have system tools, you have a task scheduler. So this is where you can schedule things to run automatically. Open my PowerPoint at 11 p.m., print this job at 2 a.m., whatever. These are where the logs are found, right? The event viewer. So you have Windows logs, you have, and the standard operating system logs are the system, security, application. When you're doing setup, that's useful, right? So this is where you find setup logs. When something goes wrong and it crashes, this is where you can get helpful information. If there are folders that are shared on your system, believe it or not, every system has automatic shares that are created, that are in place. And in case you didn't know it, there's a share that's sitting on the root of the C drive, and all you have to do is know the name of the computer and put $, and you're connected to the root of the C drive on that network system. That's something that's really cool, that's scary as all get out. And that's something I can demonstrate for you later today. So users, right? We have users, then you have groups. This is where you can configure users in groups. But here's the thing I wanted to show you, disk management. It used to be that when you purchased a system, some of them included a factory recovery partition. It wasn't something that you saw, but it was an option off of the Start menu where you could say restore to factory defaults. And what it did was it reloaded Windows after wiping the C drive completely down to bare metal. This got to be a problem because, well, to be honest, Apple started outperforming Microsoft in certain respects when it came to ease of use and system stability and so on. They started giving away free update. Well, they've always given away free updates. As long as you buy a Mac, you're always entitled to the latest version of the operating system. As long as the hardware can run it, you're entitled to a license of it. You don't have to pay for it. It just comes included. For Microsoft, after a point, you have to pay for a new version of Windows. And they'll update and upgrade to a point, but not forever. In any case, the original manufacturers would put an older version of Windows on that laptop or that PC or that gaming console, right? And you'd have Windows 7 on there, and then Windows 8, Windows 10 would come out, and you'd have this recovery partition. And if you restored it, even if you bought a copy of Windows 10, it would stamp Windows 7 right back on top. It would wipe out 10 on your C drive down to the metal, and then it would reload Windows 7 on top of it. Really sucky. In any case, Windows added, in Windows 10, they added the ability to reset within the operating system. And I wanted to show you this. If you go to Update and Security and Recovery, and then use the recovery option, and then reset this PC, there are one of two options. This one is, hey, keep my stuff. That keeps what's in the user's profile intact. But that's not really resetting things. If you have malware, if you have buggy stuff in there, and it's stored in your user profile in the user's folder, well, you don't really get rid of it. If you remove everything, it takes all your software installs, it takes everything that's in the user's folder, including your login, and it does a factory reset down to nothing. And that's a problem, because sometimes when it takes you back to a reset, you have to start loading updates all over again. A much cooler, a much neater, better, new and improved way to recover a PC is to start with a fresh, clean installation of Windows using a thumb drive. What am I saying? You can basically create a USB drive with your current version of Windows. It's called a recovery disk. Where was this here? No. Oh yeah, here it is. So sometimes oh, and if you ever use disk encryption, you want a recovery key. This is the other thing that happens, is that people use BitLocker to encrypt the whole drive on their system, and then they forget to keep the recovery key, and then they reload the operating system and they can't get back in there. So if you happen to turn on BitLocker, you want a copy of the recovery key that's used to encrypt your hard drive. Any questions so far about what I've just said?
None so far.
Okay, so I'm going to create a recovery drive. And when I create a recovery drive, it's telling me how to do that, which is really dorky. Instead of just taking them to the option, it says hit your start button and then type create a recovery drive, and then a tool opens. So that's exactly, why it couldn't just open it. I'm not really sure, but that's, hey, that's the, there's a create a restore point, create a recovery drive. So I open this up, and here's the cool part. It's going to ask you for a 16 gig thumb drive. Now, you may have a lot more on your system than 16 gigs, right? Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's say you did a whole bunch of service pack updates. What am I saying? Before you ran into trouble, you were faithful when you did updates. You checked for updates, and the latest updates, the cumulative updates for January and February and March, and then December of last year, November of last year, there were these huge updates for October and September. All of those updates will get bundled into this recovery drive. So you don't have to reload updates after you reset. Did everyone just hear what I said?
Yeah.
This is one convenient way of embedding the updates and patches and fixes that have been posted to date, and it takes the original files that were downloaded and it creates the USB drive, and it says backup system files to the recovery drive. So if you have important utilities or things that you configured for your operating system, you can uncheck this if you want a smaller footprint, but people usually leave it checked. I'm going to go ahead and say next, and then it's going to prompt me for an empty USB thumb drive. Now at some point, I'm going to stick a thumb drive in here, and you're going to find out, oh my gosh, it's not empty, and it'll bark at me and say, hey, you're going to lose everything on this drive. But it's building from the Windows folder. In particular, there's a directory I wanted to show you in Windows. It's called the it's Win. Let's see. Let's go big view. Can everybody see Win SXS?
Yeah.
Those are downloads that are installed during cumulative updates. And that's a very cool thing. See, you could see, right? Okay, so these are the things that were unpacked on the 18th, the 17th. You can scroll way the heck down here. Oh, look, December of 2019, right? These are part of I have Microsoft Office on here and it updates Office. All these updates are kind of embedded. So the latest ones that you need to build the latest, greatest version of a recovery drive are included in this folder, and those end up in the recovery disk. It's extracting those, including the original install media, and it's building this drive. And you can do a factory reset in place. So now it says connect a USB flash drive. I'm going to do that so you can see what happens, because it's gonna freak out. And all right, so here you see that as soon as I connected my thumb drive, it was used for something else called Yumi or Yummy, yet another multi-boot image thumb drive utility. That's what Yummy stands for. It's going to say, please wait. It's looking at this drive. It might squawk in a second and say, I have to format it. It may say that there's something in there. It wants you to, it should warn you basically. It'll tell you that you need at least 16 gigs. If I put one in there that's 8 gigs large, it'll say, no, that's not going to cut it. You need at least 16 to capture everything for Windows. Now that's, so what are we doing? You could go here. Let's go back to recovery. You could reset the PC and choose remove everything. And that would wipe everything out and give you a fairly clean slate. But there are exploits and malware that can still hitch a ride even when you're doing that. And then you can upgrade from there, because that's more stable. You don't have all the extra overhead and stuff. It's still not clean. What's the golden rule? At no time should methods promoted by Microsoft or other vendors to upgrade in place be considered legitimate, professional, or effective methods of OS deployment. What you really want to do is wipe the machine out. You want to wipe the drive completely. Put another way, you want in the install process to first remove the C drive and any other partitions, recovery partitions, so that there's nothing left but empty metal space. And then you want to get out of that setup and power the system off and leave it off for an hour. You're saying, or at least 5 minutes. Why would you power the system off after you remove everything from the hard drive, all the partitions from the hard drive? Why wouldn't you just keep on running with the installation? So I have all of this data, and some of it could be corrupted and loaded with malware. Why wouldn't I want to just delete it on that screen, and then just from that same screen, while it's still running and the RAM is still loaded and the hard drive still booted, why would I not want to just reload the operating system at that point?
You would probably want to the RAM first.
Okay, so there could be something in the RAM. Those are both good answers. If it's running when you remove these drives and you wipe the slate clean, what could happen is that if it's still running when you say, okay, now let's just reload the operating system, that malicious stuff could hitch a ride in RAM. So yeah, you wiped out the hard disk, but it's lurking in the RAM. And let's face it, some laptops have lots of space, right? If I go in this laptop, how many of you have 8 gigs on your laptop?
Me.
Yeah. Is 8 gigs enough space to hide a 50 meg exploit?
More than enough.
Oh, more than enough, right? So this thing would hitch a ride. What you have to do is remove these disks in the setup routine, and that's counterintuitive. Microsoft won't tell you to do that. They won't tell you to do that. They'll tell you to go ahead and just load in place. And then after everything is flaky because you painted over old paint without scraping the old paint, when you go back to support and you say, I have a problem, they're going to say, okay, let's look at your system. Then they're going to say, you had an older OS on here, didn't you? Their ultimate recommendation is going to be what? They're going to say, hey, if you want this to work right, update your BIOS and clean slate the hard drive and then reload the OS, and then you'll be fine, right? So you're going to run into problems half the time. How many users really want to spend money for a new operating system and then have problems half the time? Do you want to be the professional that recommends that approach? No.
No.
But Microsoft is going to make it easy for them to do that. Microsoft is going to say, oh, you can just reload this on top of the old one, and 30 minutes later, you have a whole new operating system. Your customers, your clients who depend on your expertise are going to say, but Microsoft says you can, if I just upgrade in place, I don't have to reload my software. That's an old version of that software I use for my bookkeeping. I can't reload that. You're like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can reload that old software. You just have to keep a backup of it. You just have to capture that data. You can get old, do you still have the install media? Yeah, but it's old. Or no, I don't have the install media. There are plenty of ways to reload an application so that it's still useful after you clean slate. They're just going to think it's a whole lot of trouble and they're going to save money and time. Everybody loves saving money and time. They're going to look at you and go, just load it. And if it blows up, well, then we'll deal with it. Don't put your reputation down to a coin toss. That's what you're doing. When you decide to use an OS method for installation and deployment to speed up things, upgrade in places are very fast and very wasteful. And you're flipping the coin, heads or tails, whether people will think you're a skunk and they paid you too much money to help them with their tech. Don't take the chance. Don't put your reputation down to a coin toss. Tell them, you hired me because I'm going to get this right. And you're going to have a much better system after we're done. Do it right or go home. That's my recommendation. I want you all to have a sense of confidence in that. And I want you to understand that Microsoft and the industry itself are their own worst enemies when it comes to certain recommendations. And yes, automated deployment, you can fire up all kinds of really cool resources to automate in-place upgrades. And they actually have a server that they would sell you for $10,000. And you can upgrade all of WAPA's PCs, all WAPA PCs at once in 30 minutes with a $10,000 machine. The only catch is you have to do it in place. And then what happens? Oh, half the systems in WAPA tank, don't work right. And then who looks bad? Well, WAPA looks bad again, but who did they hire, right? Everybody understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at where we are here. It says, hey, this drive must be able to hold at least 16 gigs and everything on the drive will be deleted. So I'm going to make this available drive, right? So here's the thing. I'm hoping that each of you have at least a 16 gig thumb drive. But if you don't, and you don't have a 16 gig thumb drive, I want to give you a neat way to perform this task. This is one thing you're going to do for your solution. You're going to create a recovery drive. And then you're going to create an installation USB. And then you're going to update the original ISO that we download from the Microsoft software download site on the UVI My Campus portal. And it's from 2019, and you're going to update, you're going to use a tool called DISM, and you'll inject all of the updates one at a time into that thing, and then you'll create this media, this ISO, this install image, and you'll burn it to a USB flash drive instead of a disk. Now, it used to be that burning it to a DVD disk was a recommended procedure, and then you make sure you don't get scratches or thumbprints or grease or dirt on the disk. But then after 5 or 6 installations, the disk is spinning in the drive, it still gets worn out. A USB flash drive is a much better way to go. You can actually take that same image and push it across the network. So we're going to do a lot with that for our solution, but one of the things you'll need to do is have a 16 gig USB drive, and it works best if you buy a cheap 16 gig USB thumb drive. It actually works much faster if you have a 3.0 compatible USB thumb drive. Does everybody know the difference between USB 3.0 and 2.0 compatible drives?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's this thing called USB 3.0 compatible. It means that the thumb drive is 2.0, but it works with a 3.0 port. Never buy a USB 3.0 compatible USB. It's cheap. Oh, 16 gig USB 3.0 compatible USB drive at Office Max probably sells for 12 bucks. And then everybody sees this and they think it's a 3.0. It's not. It's 3.0 compatible, which means you can plug it into a 3.0 port, but it's 10 times slower. So that's what you want to do. What happens if you don't want to go to Office Max? You don't have a free 16 gig thumb drive, and you want to do this solution, and you have lots of hard disk space. I'm going to show you a cool trick. So I'm going to go ahead and say next, and then I'm going to create the recovery drive. Everything will be deleted on this drive. Make sure you've backed up the files on the USB thumb drive. They're saying everything on the USB thumb drive will be deleted. If you have anything on there, make sure you've backed it up. I'm going to create it, and here we go. It's going to create the recovery drive. We're going to let that run while I'm showing you the next neat trick. Remember this picture here where I was in computer management and I clicked on disk management. You can create a virtual hard disk that looks and works and acts just like a USB that's plugged into your USB port. Right now I have, if I look at how much room I have on my C drive, I have 16.9 gigs of space, right? Everybody see that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to trick this process, and I want to do the job for the solution for the class, but I don't want to pay for another USB thumb drive. I'm using all the ones I got, and I don't like professors like Kentop who make me go out and buy stuff. I get it. I'm going to create an 8 gig thumb drive right here using some of the 16.9 gigs that are free. And I'm going to use this utility from Computer Management. Now I want to show you one more time where I got here. I was in File Explorer. I clicked this to open File Explorer. Then I clicked this PC. Then I right-clicked this PC with the right mouse button and used the context menu to select Manage. At that point, this screen came up and I selected Disk Management. Now, if that doesn't show and it looks like this, then just open up Storage and click Disk Management. Once you select Disk Management, the menu options change and you have the option to create a VHD. I'm going to do that. I'm going to create a VHD of fixed size. I'm going to put it in my temp folder so it looks like it's connected once it's done. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to put it in my temp folder. And actually, I'm going to make this Yeah. And what am I going to call that? What am I going to call that VHD? I think I'm going to call it SanDisk. Just to or let's call it verbatim, right? So these are some of the brand names for USB drives, right? Are you with me?
Yeah.
I'm going to call it verbatim. And what am I going to do for a virtual hard disk size? Well, I'll make this smaller just so you see. I'm going to calculate what a 4 gigabyte thumb drive is going to take in terms of megabytes. So I'm going to take 4 and multiply by 10, 20, 10.
4098.
Yeah, I'm going to multiply by 1024. There's 1024 megabytes in a gigabyte, and I have to be precise here, or it's going to be less than 4 gigs. So if I want it to be exactly 4 gigs, I have to put in 4096, and that's the number of megabytes. There are 1024 kilobytes in a megabyte. There's 1024 bytes in a kilobyte, and so on and so forth. It was what, 4096?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say okay. And it's going to create that thumb drive, that USB with the name verbatim. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to attach the VHD. Now I can attach it read-only, or I can attach it so that it behaves just like a thumb disk, a USB drive. If you have lots of hard drive space, this is a great way to build USB type storage disks so they behave like, and then you can boot from them, right? You can build virtual machines that boot from that VHD. It's the coolest thing since sliced bread. But I want to show you what happens when I try to use it. So now it's unused and it's not formatted, right? It's not initialized. It's 4 gigs large, and it's exactly 4 gigs large. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
I'm going to initialize it. I'm going to choose MBR because I want it to think it's an older USB drive. I'm not going to use GPT. And then once it's there, I'm going to format it. I'm going to create a simple new volume. And notice it's going to take up some disk space there, like 8 megabytes. So the next time I build this, well, that's all right. You know that when you plug in an 8 gig thumb disk, it's not really 8 gigs by the time you plug it in, right? Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to connect it when it's finished. I'm going to make it drive letter D. Okay. So there we go. And instead of calling it new volume, I'm going to call it what? Again, verbatim. I'm going to use FAT32 instead of NTFS so that I can use this on Macs. I can use it on Linux machines. I can use it anywhere. And I'll just use the default allocation unit size. I'm going to uncheck perform a quick format because I want it usable as soon as it's created. And away it goes. Now, it's going to take a while. It's going to say D is unavailable. If the location on this PC, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to say, okay. I don't really care. You need to format the disk. Do you want to format it? Yeah, I do. Windows can't format it. See that it's connected properly. Oh, my bad. Did I attach this yet? No. Everybody see what happened there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was talking and I forgot to attach, didn't I? It finished the VHD creation, but that, oh, well, all right, it did something. You know what? I think it's good. It says FAT32, right? And I think it's attached. You'll know it's attached if it's in your, so it was attached automatically. Now I have a verbatim thumb drive. If I look at it online, look at that. It's a verbatim, right? So why do you care? Well, again, if you're using other software and you want to pretend like you're using a USB thumb drive. Half the time you use these utilities to create a boot disk. You can point it to this. I may not be able to trick Windows, but I could trick other utilities like Yumi. Does everybody understand what I'm saying there? So let's see what happens. I have this, it's creating the recovery drive, taking quite a bit of time, isn't it? I want to see if I can create a recovery thumb drive using some Linux, right? So let's just say that I want to test this idea out about using a virtual thumb disk instead of an actual physical one. And okay, I've got this stuff open, so let's close some of this up. Any questions at this point?
None so far.
We're gonna leave that open. We'll close that. Oh, do we have everybody that's joined us? Yeah, we do. Close this. It's probably a good idea. All right, so I had this thing open about cached mode. Just remember that if you want to save somebody's email, you grab that OST file that's 12 gigs large in my case, and you've saved 12 gigabytes of stuff. When they say, hey, did you save my email? You tell them, oh, and you had a lot of email, it was 12 gigs. And they'll smile, right?
You can do that. Send 12 gigs in an email.
No, you can save 12 gigs in an Outlook file and save it to a PST and then open it in Outlook.
Oh, okay.
With a thumb drive. So you can move like entire mailboxes, very large mailboxes, by putting it on a thumb drive and then opening it up. See, watch. I can go to File, then I can go to Open, then I can open a data file, and a PST or an OST, right? So an offline data file, an offline mailbox is called OST, but you can export the mailbox. The other thing you can do is you can take this profile by clicking on tKentop, not here, not the inbox, because that doesn't include everything, but click here and then go to File and then Open and Export and then Import Export. And then I can export to a file. That's the PST file. So you can take the mailbox, instead of the offline file, you can export to a PST, and that's easier. That's actually easier to move across. I'm going to select Outlook data file PST, and then I'm going to include all the subfolders, right? That's taking everything from the beginning, all my calendars and contacts. If I click here, all I'm getting is inbox email. I'm not getting deleted items. I'm not getting drafts. I'm not getting other things. If I click here, I'm getting all of those things: drafts, deleted items, sent items. I'm also getting my contacts, my calendars, everything else that goes in Outlook. I'm not going to click next because I only have a couple of gigs left of free space on my drive because what I'm demonstrating. And if I click next, I'm going to crash my system in front of you and look pretty stupid. In any case, that's another way of preserving the email. Let's look at Yumi for a second. My install media, I have a very small disk image file for Linux. It's only 700 megs large. And what I'd like to do is see if I can use that VHD thumb drive I just simulated to build a boot disk with Yumi using Debian. Is everybody with me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to install Debian, or I want to install CentOS or Kali Live, right? I can do a Kali penetration testing or forensic boot disk. But I'll go ahead and I'll say yes. And then I'll agree to the license agreement. So Yumi is actually PenDrive Linux. It's a special version of PenDrive Linux. You may have seen other references to PenDrive Linux out there. I'm going to show all drives. And you notice my D drive is sitting right there. Everybody see it?
Yeah.
Right. So now I'm going to download the ISO, or I'm going to select the ISO, and I said Debian, right? So here's Ubuntu, sent Debian. There it is. How cool is that? Now I'm going to browse to my Debian. I thought I had Debian in here. Oh, that's because of the live part. Let's see if we can pick something else. I'll pick the CentOS. CentOS installer. That's not a live image, that's an installer. That's pretty tight too. That's only 700 megs, 600 megs. So I'll do the Cent installer. I'll browse, downloads, install media, Cent, there we go. Okay, so it's going to use my simulated USB drive, 3 point something, and it's going to load my Linux into there as if it were a thumb drive. It's going to create the Linux boot record. It's going to create a multi-boot option as you stick this thing in and you boot with it. Then it's going to install the CentOS operating system installation file. It says, are you absolutely positive drive letter D is your USB drive? So it thinks we're dealing with a USB drive. I'm going to click yes, and away we go. Works just like a USB drive. Woohoo! Without having to pay for a USB drive. So what am I saying? If you want to use this approach and you would rather avoid the purchase of a 16 gig thumb drive to build a recovery disk for your Windows 10 installation, you are welcome to do so. However, I'm going to say, no, I don't want to add more. One thing about Yumi that's really cool is that you can preload a dozen different operating system images into that one thumb disk, that one USB drive, and then you can load your favorite operating system on any machine from the list that you set up. So that's a cool part about Yumi, is that you can do more than one installation media, and then just pick what you want to load from that disk. Right, so here it says, thanks for using it. And that's available out on the internet if you go to pendrivelinux.com. Again, this recovery drive is taking a while. It's rebuilding all of the Windows components from the live operating system that's running right now, and that's why it's taking so long. But once that's finished, you'll be able to completely reinstall. So let's talk about whether or not you want to buy a 16 gig USB thumb drive. If you have a laptop and you don't have the installation media to recover it in case it crashes, or to reinstall from scratch after it's been wiped clean to the bare metal to kill something bad, I'm going to demonstrate by a separate video. I have to use a video camera. I can't do it live on screen because when I do it, I'm going to wipe out a disk, and then I'm not in Windows, so I can't capture it. But I have a separate video I'm going to show you about how to wipe a hard disk completely clean using the Windows startup menu, and then how to back out of setup. That's something that I'll put alongside this video before the weekend. And then you can choose to wipe out an existing USB drive. You can practice on a VHD if you want, instead of using a real thing. It's up to you. I would say if you have never built a recovery disk for your copy of Windows 10, you should do it, because it'll save you how much money? Let's find out. How much is a copy of Windows 10 Home Edition now?
Like 200.
Yeah. So if I go to, well, let's go to Amazon and see if we can find a cheaper version on Amazon that's legitimate, right? So I'm gonna check a couple of sources here. Oh, and I'll go to Best Buy while I'm at it, because does Best Buy ship to Virgin Islands?
They do, as far as I understand.
Yes, they do. I have gotten stuff from them.
That's nice. That's nice. Windows 10. And let's just make it cheap, right? Not the Pro Edition. Let's just go Home Edition. Or let's just say, yeah, Home. All right. And Windows 10 Home. And Windows 10 Home.
Yeah, you're not in Best Buy.
I'm not in Best Buy. Oh, I got to choose a country. That was my mistake. Good catch. Thank you. Okay, 15% off. That's nice. Maybe with a coupon, right? These are Windows 10 machines. The download is $139 for Home Edition. Look at that. Now, wouldn't it be nicer if you could just do this instead? Let's USB 16 gigabyte 3.0. Well, this one's pretty cost effective. That's $12.59 each, right? 16 gigs. I mean, yeah, that's not too bad, right? What do you think?
Yeah, not really. Yeah.
Right? 15, 17, 18 bucks. That's a legitimate 3.0 disk, so it's going to load 10 times faster. When you're installing, you want something that's for a big pack. But anyway, what am I trying to say? Which is cheaper, $12.59 and you do this? Or would you rather go this route? And that's just the Home Edition. What does Pro cost? Oh my gosh. That's 200 bucks if it's a penny, right? And what's the point? You have to have good media to install, even if you automate, right? Now, we downloaded the ISO off of the Windows, the Microsoft software downloads option in My Campus Portal. And that's a student license that you can use. All right, so you would get Home Edition and then you would upgrade to Pro for $99 more, $139 and then 99 more. So if you had an older version of Windows, you could upgrade to this for $99 more if you had a legitimate copy, right? And that's the problem, is that sometimes you get this stuff and it doesn't install. I want you to gain the experience of creating an install disk that has all of the updates and upgrades built in. Because whenever one of the suckiest things about starting with a clean install is that if your install media is how old? Everybody look at this. What's that year right here?
2019.
Do we want to download 2 years of monthly updates when we finish installing this?
Nope.
Hell no. That's not automated install. There's nothing efficient or automated about that. So one of the best ways to do that is to build a recovery disk with an existing version of Windows, or you can get the media and you can use a program called DISM. It's the Disk Image Service and Maintenance Utility, and I can backload the 2019 updates. So if I look at this image right here, I'm gonna do this. I can stuff all the updates in here, and then when I load it across a network using a server, I automate the process. I'm not having to load 2 years of junk the moment I turn the machine on. That's so important. Let's look briefly at this, and then we're done for the day. So I'm going to paste in this and say server standard 2019. I'll put Microsoft at the beginning because otherwise, I want you to notice I'm using Bing and I'm using Edge, because if you're doing things Microsoft, you should probably use this instead of, they should use both Google and Bing. Sometimes you get answers on this. You can say cumulative updates since then. Right, so here's the Microsoft Update Catalog, right? So this says latest cumulative update. That's from March. What you want are the updates that have been in there. So you're going to look at the update catalog. Does everybody see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're downloading these things, and then you're using DISM to apply each of them to this ISO. And once they're loaded into that ISO, it overwrites some of the stuff inside. It's not like this gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you have a 12 gig image. That's not what happens. DISM takes some components out and loads the new versions from here in, so that what you have is a server 2019, including 20H2 from March of 2021. And that's something I will demonstrate in a separate video. Okay, so that's all we wanted to share today. We will have one more content-oriented class on Tuesday. Tuesday, where we review the security account models or management. This is something you need to account for as you're doing installations. If you're doing installs in a domain environment, you can automate them to a much higher degree. If you're doing installations in a workgroup environment, you have to understand how there's a limit to how best you can automate installs and speed them up between a work group environment with the local security account management versus a domain environment. And we'll explain more about that on Tuesday. So this is an important thing to understand when it comes to operating system automation, putting out a lot of machines fast. So WAPA finds out they have outdated Windows, they're getting hacked too much, they need 2,300 systems updated to the latest version of Windows 10. How do you do that? Well, you have to make sure they're in this environment first, and then there's a couple of other tools we'll show you on Tuesday. Okay? So stay tuned.
Yes, sir.
And we'll see you Tuesday, and thank you for your patience over the spring break. Are there any questions before we close out?
Good.
Okay. Well, Let's check our status just to see. All right, so it's still doing this. Yeah, obviously this takes a while to rebuild. I'll show you what the result was on Tuesday. That'll be the first thing we look at. Let's look at how our Yummy. Did we see how that worked? Did Yummy work? Oh, look. There's my CentOS Linux install. Yep. So using a virtual thumb drive, a virtual USB worked for install media creation. Yeah. And if I set this to boot for a virtual machine, it'll come right up and you'll see the same boot menus.
That
Okay.
is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. All right. Well, see you next week.
All right, see you till then.
All right.